Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in for another episode. I am exhausted, guys. I've spent the morning outside doing a bunch of yard work, one of my least favorite things to do, but it needed to get done. Got done some weeding, cut the lawn, did some weed whacking, did some painting. I'm just exhausted, so I'm sitting down here drinking a cold beer, because that's what I like to do after cutting the lawn. Today's choice is a really good one. It's a collaboration, it looks like, between Ology Brewing and Freehand Goods, two Florida breweries. This is called Dormitory Days. It's a hazy IPA, which most of you know is my favorite. This one tastes like they squeezed some of that Florida fresh orange juice into it. It's really refreshing. It's a very good one for after you get done cutting the lawn. But that has me thinking about today's topic. You know, I've done a lot of videos recently on swim baits, both just a hard-bodied swim bait as well as a hollow belly swim bait. Lots of different tips, lots of different tricks as to how you can go about rigging them, whether that's rigging this so that it's weedless or doing a line through on a hard body. Really something that, you can't go wrong either way. Both of these are absolute fish catching machines. Swim baits, guys, are probably one of the most versatile baits you can use. I'm not going to get into like the where and how and when. The reality is, if you put a swim bait on and you throw it, chances are good you're going to catch fish. And they don't just work for bass, they work for all species. They are like up here in the North Country, if I'm throwing a swim bait, I do not know if I'm going to catch a smallmouth, a largemouth, a walleye, a northern, a muskie. You name it, I'm going to catch it. And if it's a small 2.8 size one, I could catch perch, I could catch crappie. Literally almost everything eats a swim bait. So it's a phenomenal bait. But the question I got after doing a bunch of those videos is, when do you throw a hard, solid belly or solid body swim bait versus a hollow belly swim bait? And it's a really good question. And to be honest with you, I don't think there's a huge difference between the two, but I do have very specific times I prefer to throw one over the other. And most of that has to do with the rigging options. And because of the fact that the hollow belly is actually hollow, it's pretty much like a tube bait. You can see there's a hole that runs all the way through it. So, I mean, it's literally hollow all the way down the bait. What that means is when you go to rig it, if you're rigging it, say, on a straight jig head, like this Dirty Jigs, what's going to happen is you don't have nearly as much plastic to hold onto your jig head. So you're going to go through a lot more jig heads a lot faster, to the point where sometimes if you're just, let's say you set the hook even though you didn't get a bite, that could be enough to rip through your hollow belly to the point where you're not going to be able to use it again on the hook. You'll have to get a new one, or you'll have to get some sort of swim bait glue, like Mend It or something along those lines, to fix the swim bait so that it'll stay on your hook. For me personally, I don't think that's a great way to go about it. I like to utilize baits and techniques that will hold up to fish catches, and therefore I'm not going through tons of baits. I'm not spending extra money. It's just a kind of a pet peeve of mine. Absolutely, in a tournament situation when big bucks are on the line and that's my professional career, if it means getting a bite per bait, I will do that. But generally speaking, I prefer to use something that's going to hold up longer. Now, that doesn't mean that this won't hold up. You just need to use a different piece of terminal tackle to hook it. So let's talk about the hollow belly, because I am. For me, the hollow belly, because of the fact that if I use a standard jig head, will not hold up well. You will rip that out really quick and you'll have a lot of trouble in trying to keep that bait on your hook. What I will use this for or what I tend to gravitate to with a hollow belly is a weighted swim bait hook that allows me to rig this weedless. Now, I know I've done videos in the past talking about how you can make a hollow belly into a stupid swim bait, similar to a stupid tube, that there's ways you can rig that. Those are great ways to do it. But if I'm choosing something that's on the market, a standard rigging contraption, I'm going to go with something like this weighted swim bait hook by Berkeley. This is the Fusion 19. And because the fact that you have this hook, it just screws into the nose, and therefore it comes up and you rig it almost like you're Texas rigging it. It's just a weighted, belly weighted swim bait hook. Your swim baits hold up significantly better. You can catch multiple fish with this type of terminal tackle versus a normal weighted swim bait hook. So for me, I tend to go to a hollow belly because I think a hollow belly is every bit as good as a solid bodied swim bait. I tend to gravitate when I'm fishing grass or if I'm fishing around wood to a hollow belly because I can rig it weedless, and I think you'll get a lot of bites by doing that. Um, when you rig this on a weighted belly weighted hook and you rig it weedless so that it's Texas rigged, you'll be able to bring that through any of the grass out there. Now, if I'm fishing around pad stems or bulrushes or buggy whips for those that are down south, or if you're out east, you guys call them oh, what do you call them? Cane, not cane. I can't think of what you call it offhand. But if you're fishing around those buggy whip type reeds, I will tend then to not use a hollow belly, because if you're fishing around something that is a little bit harder stalked, so your pad stems and your buggy whips, you tend to get stuck more if you were to rig this weedless on a hollow belly versus a solid belly swim bait. And that just has to do with the fact that it's easier to squeeze down this bait, which is one of the reasons I like it. I think you get better hookups on a weighted swim bait hook versus a solid belly, because it just shrinks down so much better. When a fish bites it, you get much better hookups, in my opinion. So if I'm fishing around grass or I'm fishing around wood, I will tend to go with a hollow belly on a weighted belly weighted hook. Uh, if I'm fishing open water or I want to get a little deeper, say I'm ledge fishing, something along those lines, I will tend to go with a solid bodied swim bait on just a standard jig head, because I can rig it where it's exposed. And at that point, you've got a lot more body mass that is holding onto your hook shank. So it stays on much better. You're going to be able to catch a lot more fish on one of these than you would a hollow belly if you're using a standard jig head. The one other difference I'll make between the two is when they're swimming with a solid bodied swim bait, you get more tail movement. The front of the body will generally stay more straight, and your movement is coming from the tail going back and forth. A hollow belly, you get much more bait rolling side to side. So you do get tail kicking, but when it's kicking, your bait rolls side to side. So you get a lot more motion out of this. Because of that, I tend to gravitate during warm water periods more towards the hollow belly. I think it's a more aggressive approach. It gives off a bigger flash, a bigger appearance, because not only is the tail kicking, the bait is rolling side to side. For me, if I'm fishing in cold water, that's when I would definitely prefer to go with a solid bodied swim bait, because it's a much less intimidating meal, because the bait is riding true and straight and you're just getting some tail movement back and forth. That's just a preference. Again, I'm not going to sit here and say that a hollow belly is much better than a solid bodied swim bait. I really feel like they're very, very similar. You get a lot of bites on both. The other big difference is if I'm fishing small swim baits, you'll get much better motion out of a solid bodied swim bait than you will a small hollow belly. Hollow bellies really, once you hit about that 4-inch mark, at that point, they don't get much smaller than that because they don't run as good. You need a little bit bigger bait to get you that side roll and some good boot tail kicks out of it, versus a solid bodied swim bait. Because it's all tail motion, you can drop down to like a 2-inch swim bait and still get some really good motion. So, if I'm fishing in an area or a time when I want to throw a small swim bait, at that point I'll go solid bodied. But really, for me, the hollow belly is a warm water swim bait that I can fish it through areas where I need to have something weedless. So if I'm fishing around grass, or I'm fishing around maybe some wood or laydowns. There is one other big difference too I want to mention. If I'm skipping docks or I want to be skipping a swim bait, I will 100% go with a solid bodied bait on, still some sort of belly weighted swim bait hook, uh, generally speaking, because I'm going to need to be somewhat weedless. And that just has to do with the fact that if you try to skip a hollow belly, you're going to be sliding that bait down the shank of your hook nonstop. It just does not work as well because, again, you do not have the same amount of plastic that's holding the hook shank. It's just one of those things that you might get the same bites if you're doing it, but you're going to have less casts that end up being able to be retrieved back the way that they are, because you're going to have a lot of times when your bait is balled up on the hook shank just because it slides down the hook shank versus a solid bodied swim bait. So guys, that's, in either case, you can't really go wrong. Both are absolute fish catching tools, but there are some times when I prefer one over the other, which I've explained, and I hope that was helpful to you. If you've got specific times you prefer to use a hollow belly versus a solid bodied swim bait, please put that in the comment section so that others can learn from your experiences as well. Otherwise, if you enjoyed the channel or enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Stay tuned, another video coming out tomorrow.